What I have to do is take a resolute step forward into the future. I've barely found the way along which I will have to travel. When I've made some progress toward the knowledge and self perfection I'm seeking, perhaps I'll take the time to relax and look back. Not now, I see. I find it hard to put into words, but I hope you will understand anyway. I do. I'm glad to see you are as serious about your goal as you are. Keep following your own judgment. I'll say goodbye now, but someday if I don't get myself killed along the way, we will meet again. Yes, yes. If we have a chance to meet, let's by all means do so. Takuan turned, took a step, and then halted. Oh yes, I suppose I should warn you that Osugi and Engelgon left Miyamoto in search of you and Otsu 3 years ago. They resolved never to return until they have taken their revenge, and old as they are still trying to track you down. They may cause you some inconvenience, but I don't think they can make any real trouble. Don't take them too seriously. Oh yes, and then there is Aoki Tenseimon. I don't suppose you ever knew his name, but he was in charge of the search for you. Perhaps it had nothing to do with anything you or I said or did, but that splendid samurai managed to disgrace himself with the result that he has been dismissed permanently from Lord Ikeda's service. He's no doubt wondering about too. Takuan grew grave. Musashi, your path won't be an easy one. Be careful as you make your way along it. I'll do my best, Musashi smiled. Well, I guess that's everything. I'll be on my way. Takuan turned and walked westward. He didn't look back. Keep well, Musashi called after him. He stood at the crossroads watching the monk's form recede until it was out of sight. Then, once again alone, he started to walk toward the east. Now there's only this sword, he thought, the only thing in the world I have to rely on. He rested his hand on the weapon's handle and vowed to himself, I will live by its rule. I will regard it as my soul, and by learning to master it, strive to improve myself to become a better and wiser human being. Takuan follows the way of sin. I will follow the way of the sword. I must make of myself an even better man than he is. After all, he reflected, he was still young. It was not too late. His footsteps were steady and strong, his eyes full of youth and hope. From time to time, he raised the brim of his basket hat and stared down the long road into the future, the unknown path all humans must tread. He hadn't gone far. In fact, he was just on the outskirts of Himeji when a woman came running toward him from the other side of Hanada Bridge. He squinted into the sunlight. It's you, Otsu cried, clutching his sleeve. Musashi gasped in surprise. Otsu's tone was reproachful. Takezo, surely you haven't forgotten. Don't you remember the name of this bridge? Did it slip your mind that I promised to wait here for you no matter how long it took? You've been waiting here for the last 3 years. He was astounded. Yes, Osugi and Uncle Gon caught up with me right after I left you. I was sick and had to take a rest, and I almost got myself killed, but I got away. I've been waiting here since about 20 days after we said goodbye at Nakayama Pass. Pointing to a basket weaving shop at the end of the bridge, a typical little high road store selling souvenirs to travelers, she continued, I told the people there my story, and they were kind enough to take me on as a sort of helper, so I could stay and wait for you. Today is the 970th day, and I've kept my promise faithfully. She peered into his face, trying to fathom his thoughts. You will take me with you, won't you? The truth, of course, was that Musashi had no intention of taking her or anyone else with him. At this very moment, he was hurrying away to avoid thinking about his sister, whom he wanted to see so badly and so strongly drawn toward the questions raced through his agitated mind. What can I do? How can I embark on my quest for truth and knowledge with a woman, with anyone, interfering all the time? And this particular girl is, after all, still betrothed to Matahachi. Musashi couldn't keep his thoughts from showing on his face. Take you with me? Take you where? He demanded bluntly. Wherever you go, I'm setting out on a long, hard journey, not a sightseeing trip. I won't get in your way, and I'm prepared to endure some hardships. Some, only some, as many as I have to. That's not the point, Otsu. How can a man master the way of the samurai with a woman tagging along? Wouldn't that be funny? People would say, look at Musashi, he needs a wet nurse to take care of him. She pulled harder at his kimono, clinging like a child. Let go of my sleeve, he ordered. No, I won't. You lied to me, didn't you? When did I lie to you? At the pass, you promised to take me with you. That was ages ago. I wasn't really thinking then either, and I didn't have time to explain. What's more, it wasn't my idea. It was yours. I was in a hurry to get moving, and you wouldn't let me go until I promised. I went along with what you said because I had no choice. No, 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 you can't mean what you are saying. You can't, she cried, pinning him against the bridge railing. Let go of me. People are watching. Let them. Once you were tied up in the tree, I asked you if you wanted my help. You were so happy you told me twice to cut the rope. You don't deny that, do you? You don't deny that, do you? She was trying to be logical in her argument, but her tears betrayed her. First abandoned as an infant, then jilted by her betrothed, and now this. Musashi, knowing how alone she was in the world and caring for her deeply, was tongue-tied, though outwardly more composed. Let go, he said with finality. It's broad daylight and people are staring at us. Do you want us to be a sideshow for these busybodies? She released his sleeve and fell sobbing against the railing, her shiny hair falling over her face. I'm sorry, she mumbled. I shouldn't have said all that. Please forget it. You don't owe me anything. Leaning over and pushing her hair from her face with both hands, he looked into her eyes. Otsu, he said tenderly, during all that time you were waiting until this very day, I have been shut up in the castle dungeon. For 3 years I haven't even seen the sun. Yes, I heard. You knew. Takuan told me. Takuan, he told you everything. I guess so. I fainted at the bottom of a ravine near the Mikazuki tea house. I was running away from Osuki and ankle gone.
Ravine.
Ravine. Ravine.
Ravine. Ravine.
Ravine.
Ravine.
Ravine. He also helped me. Takuan rescued me. He also helped me make agreements to walk here at the souvenir shop. That was 3 years ago, and he has stopped in several times. Only yesterday he came and had some tea. I wasn't sure what he meant, but he said, it has got to do with a man and a woman, so who can say how it will turn out? Musashi dropped his hands and looked down the road leading west. He wondered if he would ever again meet the man who had saved his life, and again he was struck by Takuan's concern for his fellow man, which seemed all-encompassing and completely devoid of selfishness. Musashi realized how narrow-minded he himself had been, how petty to suppose that the monk felt a special compassion for him alone. His generosity encompassed Ogin, Otsu, anyone in need whom he thought he could help. It has to do with a man and a woman. Takuan's words to Otsu sat heavily on Musashi's mind. It was a burden for which he was ill prepared, since in all the mountains of books he had pored over those 3 years, there wasn't one word about the situation he was in now. Even Takuan had shrank from becoming involved in this matter between him and Otsu. Had Takuan meant that relationships between men and women had to be worked out alone by the people involved? Did he mean that no rules apply, as they did in the art of war, that there was no foolproof strategy, no way to win, or was this meant as a test for Musashi? A problem only Musashi would be able to solve for himself. Lost in thought, he stared down at the water flowing under the bridge. Otsu gazed up into his face, now distant and calm. I can come, can't I? She pleaded. The shopkeeper has promised to let me quit whenever I wish. I will just go and explain everything and then pack my things. I'll be back in a minute. Musashi covered her small white hand, which was resting on the railing, with his own. Listen, he said plaintively. I beg of you, just stop and think. What's there to think about? I told you, I've just become a new man. I stayed in that musty hole for 3 years. I read books, I thought, I screamed and cried, then suddenly the light dawned. I understood what it means to be human. I have a new name, Miyamoto Musashi. I want to dedicate myself to training and discipline. I want to spend every moment of every day working to improve myself. I know now how far I have to go. If you choose to bind your life to mine, you would never be happy. There will be nothing but hardship, and it won't get easier as it goes along. It will get more and more difficult. When you talk like that, I feel closer to you than ever. Now I'm convinced I was right. I have found the best man I could ever find, even if I search for the rest of my life. He saw he was just making things worse. I'm sorry, I can't take you with me. Well, then I'll just follow along. As long as I don't interfere with your training, what harm would it do? You won't even know I'm around. Musashi could find no answer. I won't bother you, I promise. He remained silent. It's all right then, isn't it? Just wait here. I'll be back in a second, and I'll be furious if you're trying to sneak away. Otsu ran off toward the basket weaving shop. Musashi thought of ignoring the everything and running too, in the opposite direction. Though the whale was there, his feet wouldn't move. Otsu looked back and called, Remember, don't try to sneak off. She smiled, showing her dimples, and Musashi inadvertently nodded. Satisfied by this gesture, she disappeared into the shop. If he was going to escape, this was the time. His heart told him so, but his body was still shackled by Otsu's pretty dimples and pleading eyes. How sweet she was! It was certain no one in the world save his sister loved him so much, and it wasn't as though he disliked her. He looked at the sky, he looked into the water, desperately gripped the railing, troubled and confused. Soon, tiny bits of wood began floating from the bridge into the flowing stream. Otsu reappeared on the bridge in new straw sandals, light yellow leggings, and a large traveling hat tied under the chin with a crimson ribbon. She had never looked more beautiful, but Musashi was nowhere to be seen. With a cry of shock, she burst into tears. Then her eyes fell upon the spot on the railing from which the chips of wood had fallen. There, curved with the point of a dagger, was the clearly inscribed message, Forgive me, forgive me. She had never looked more beautiful. The Yoshioka school, the life of today which cannot know the morrow. In the Japan of the early 17th century, an awareness of the fleeting nature of life was as common among the masses as it was among the elite. The famous general Oda Nobunaga, who laid the foundations for Toyotomi Hideyoshi's unification of Japan, summed up this view in a short poem. Man's 50 years are but a phantom dream in his journey through the eternal transmigrations. Defeated in a skirmish with one of his own generals, who attacked him in a sudden fit of revenge, Nobunaga committed suicide in Kyoto at the age of 48. By 1605, some 2 decades later, the incessant warring among the daimyo was essentially over, and Tokugawa Ieyasu had ruled as shogun for 2 years. The lanterns on the streets of Tokyo and Osaka glowed brightly, as they had in the best days of the Ashikaga shogunate, and the prevailing mood was light-hearted and festive, but few were certain the peace would last. More than 100 years of civil strife had so colored people's view of life that they could only regard the present tranquility as fragile and ephemeral. The capital was thriving, but the tension of not knowing how long this would last whetted the people's appetite for merrymaking. Though still in control, Ieyasu had officially retired from the position of shogun. While still strong enough to control the other daimyo and defend the family's claim to power, he had passed on his title to his third son, Hidetada. It was rumored that the new shogun would visit Kyoto soon to pay his respects to the emperor, but it was common knowledge that his trip west meant more than a courtesy call. His greatest potential rival, Toyotomi Hideyori, was the son of Hideyoshi, Nobunaga's able successor. Hideyoshi had done his best to ensure that power remained with the Toyotomis until Hideyori was old enough to exercise it, but the victor at Sekigahara was Ieyasu. Hideyori still resided at Osaka Castle, and although Ieyasu, rather than have him done away with, permitted him to enjoy a substantial annual income, he was aware that Osaka was a major threat as a possible rallying point of resistance. Many feudal lords knew this too, and hedging their bets, paid equal court to both Hideyori and the shogun. It was often remarked that the former had enough castles and gold to hire every masterless samurai or ronin in the country if he wanted to. Idle speculation on the country's political future formed the bulk of gossip in the Kyoto air. War's bound to break out sooner or later. It's just a matter of time. These street lanterns could be snuffed out tomorrow. Why worry about it? What happens, happens. Let's enjoy ourselves while we can. The bustling nightlife and booming pleasure quarters were tangible evidence that much of the populace were doing just that. Among those so inclined was a group of samurai now turning a corner into Shijo Avenue. Beside them ran a long wall of white plaster, leading to an impressive gate with an imposing roof. A wooden plaque, blackened with age, announced in barely legible writing, Yoshioka Campbell of Kyoto, military instructor to the Ashikaga shoguns. The 8 young samurai gave the impression of having practiced sword fighting all day without respite. Some bore wooden swords in addition to the 2 customary steel ones. Others were carrying lances. They looked tough, the kind of men who would be the first to see bloodshed the moment a clash of arms erupted. Their faces were as hard as stone and their eyes threatening, as if always on the brink of exploding into a rage. Young master, where are we headed tonight? They clamor, surrounding their teacher. Anywhere but where we were last night, he replied gravely. Why, those women were falling all over you. They barely look at the rest of us. Maybe he's right, another man put in. Why don't we try someplace new, where no one knows the young master or any of the rest of us? Shouting and carrying on among themselves, they seemed totally consumed by the question of where to go drinking and whoring. They moved on to a well-lit area among the banks of the Carmel River. For years the land had been vacant and wheat-field, a veritable symbol of wartime desolation, but with the coming of peace, its value had shot up. Scattered here and there were flimsy houses, red and pale yellow curtains hanging crookedly in their doorways, where prostitutes plied their trade. Girls from Tember province, white powder smeared carelessly on their faces, whistled to prospective customers. Unfortunate women who had been purchased in droves plunk on their shamizens, a newly popular instrument, as they sang bawdy songs and laughed among themselves. The young master's name was Yoshioka Seijuro, and a tasteful dark brown kimono draped his tall frame. Not long after they had entered the brothel district, he looked back and said to one of his group, Toji, buy me a basket hat. The kind that hides your face, I suppose. Yes. You don't need one here, do you? Gion Toji replied. I wouldn't have asked for one if I didn't, Seijuro snapped impatiently. I don't care to have people see the son of Yoshioka Campbell walking about in a place like this. Toji laughed, but it just attracts attention. All the women around here know that if you hide your face under a hat, you must be from a good family and probably a rich one. Of course, there are other reasons why they won't leave you alone, but that's one of them. Toji was, as usual, both teasing and flattering his master. He turned and ordered one of the men to get the hat and stood waiting for him to thread his way through the lanterns and merrymakers. The errand accomplished, Seijuro donned the hat and began to feel more relaxed. In that hat, commented Toji, you look more than ever like the fashionable man about town. Turning to the others, he continued his flattery indirectly. See, the women were all leaning out their doors to get a good look at him. Toji's sycophancy aside, Seijuro did cut a fine figure. With two highly polished scabbards hanging from his side, he exuded the dignity and class one would expect from the son of a well-to-do family. No straw hat could stop the women from calling out to him as he walked. Hey there, handsome. Why hide your face under that silly hat? Come on over here. I want to see what's under there. Come on, don't be shy. Give us a peek. Seijuro reacted to those teasing come-ons by trying to look even taller and more dignified. It had only been a short time since Toji had first persuaded him to set foot in the district, and it still embarrassed him to be seen there. Born the eldest son of the famous swordsman of the swordsman Yoshioka Campbell, he had never lacked many, but he had remained until recently unacquainted with the seamier side of life. The attention he was getting made his paws race. He still felt enough shame to hide, though as a rich man's spoiled son he had always been something of a show-off. The flattery of his entourage, no less than the flirting of the women, bolstered his ego like sweet poison. Why, it's the master from Shicho Avenue, one of the women exclaimed. Why are you hiding your face? You are not fooling anybody. How does that woman know who I am? Seijuro growled at Toji, pretending to be offended. That's easy, the woman said before Toji could open his mouth. Everybody knows that the people at the Yoshioka school like to wear that dark brown color. It's called Yoshioka dye, and it's very popular around here. That's true, but as you say, a lot of people wear it. Yes, but they don't have the three-cycle crest on their kimonos. Seijuro looked down at his sleeve. I must be more careful, he said as a hand from behind the lattice reached out and latched onto the garment. My, said Toji. He hid his face, but not his crest. He must have wanted to be recognized. I don't think we can really avoid getting in here now. Let go, woman, Toji roared. He says we are coming in. The students crowded in under the shop curtain. The room they entered was so tastelessly decorated with vulgar pictures and messily arranged flowers that it was difficult for Seijuro to feel at ease. The others, however, took no notice of the shabbiness of their surroundings. Bring on the sake, Toji demanded, also ordering assorted tidbits. After the food arrived, Ueda Rohei, who was Toji's match with a sword, cried, "Bring on the women." The order was given in exactly the same surly tone Toji had used to order their food and drink. "Hey, oh Ueda says bring the women," the others chorused, mimicking Rohei's voice. "I don't like being called old," Rohei said, scowling. "It's true I've been at the school longer than any of you, but you won't find a gray hair on my head. You probably dye it. Whoever said that, come forward and drink a cup as punishment. Too much trouble, throw it here." The sake cup sailed through the air. "Here's the repayment," and another cup flew through the air. "Hey, somebody dance," Seijuro called out. "You dance, Rohei. Dance and show us how young you are." "I am prepared, sir. Watch." Going to the corner of the veranda, he tied a mate's red apron around the back of his head, stuck a plum blossom in the knot, and seized a broom. "Why, look, he's going to do the dance of the Heater Maiden. Let's hear the song too, Toji." He invited them all to join in, and they began rapping rhythmically on the dishes with their chopsticks, while one man clanged the fire tongs against the edge of the brazier. Across the bamboo fence, the bamboo fence, the bamboo fence, I caught sight of a long-sleeve kimono in the snow. Drowned in applause after the first verse, Toji bowed out and the women took up where he had left off, accompanying themselves on shamisen. "The girl I saw yesterday is not here today. The girl I see today, she will not be here tomorrow. I know not what the morrow will bring. I want to love her today." In one corner, a student held up a huge bowl of sake to a comrade and said, "Say, why don't you down this in one gulp?" "No thanks, no thanks. You call yourself a samurai and you can't even put this away." "Sure I can, but if I do, you have to too." "Fair enough." The contest began with them gulping like horses at the trout and dribbling sake out of the corners of their mouths. An hour or so later, a couple of them started vomiting, while others were reduced to immobility and blankly staring bloodshot eyes. One, whose customary bluster became more strident the more he drank, declaimed, "Does anyone in this country besides the young master truly understand the techniques of the Kyohachi style? If there is, I want to meet him." "Oops." Another stalwart seated near Seijuro laughed and stammered through his hiccups. "He's piling on the flattery because the young master is here. There are other schools of martial arts besides the ones here in Kyoto, and the Yoshioka schools is not necessarily the greatest anymore. In Kyoto alone, there is the school of Toder Seigen in Kurotani, and there is Ogasawara Genshinsai in Kitano, and let's not forget Ho Itosai in Shirakawa, even though he doesn't take students. And what's so wonderful about them? I mean, we shouldn't get the idea we are the only swordsmen in the world. You simple-minded bastard, shouted a man whose pride had been offended. Come forward like this, retorted the critic, standing up. You are a member of this school and you are belittling Yoshioka Kampo's style. I'm not belittling it, it's just that things aren't what they used to be in the old days when the master taught the shoguns and was considered the greatest of swordsmen. There are far more people practicing the way of the sword these days, not only in Kyoto but in Edo, Hitachi, Ichizen, the home provinces, the western provinces, Kyushu, all over the country. Just because Yoshioka Kampo was famous doesn't mean the young master and all of us are the greatest swordsmen alive. It's just not true, so why kid ourselves? Coward, you pretend to be a samurai but you are afraid of other schools. Who's afraid of them? I just think we should guard ourselves against becoming complacent. And who are you to be giving warnings? With this, the offended student punched the other in the chest, knocking him down. You want to fight? Growled the fallen man. Yet I'm ready. The seniors, Gion Toji and Ueda Rohei, intervened. Stop it, you two. Jumping to their feet, they pulled the two men apart and trying to smooth their ruffled feathers. Quiet down now. We all understand how you feel. A few more cups of sake were poured into the combatants, and presently things were back to normal. The firebrand was once again eulogizing himself and the others, while the critic, his arm draped around Rohei, pleaded his case tearfully. I only spoke up for the sake of the school, he sobbed. If people keep spouting flattery, Yoshioka Kampo's reputation will eventually be ruined. Ruined, I tell you. Seijuro alone remained relatively sober. Noticing this, Toji said, You are not enjoying the party, are you? Do you think they really enjoy it, I wonder? Sure, this is their idea of a good time. I don't see how, when they carry on like that. Look, why don't we go someplace quieter? I have had enough of this too. Seijuro, looking much relieved, quickly assented. I'd like to go to the place we were at last night. You mean the Yomogi? Yes, that's much nicer. I thought all along you wanted to go there, but it would have been a waste of money to take along this bunch of oafs. That's why I steer them here. It's cheap. Let's sneak out then. Rohei can take care of the rest. Just pretend you are going to the toilet. I'll come along in a few minutes. Seijuro skillfully disappeared. No one noticed. Outside a house not far away, a woman stood on tiptoe, trying to hang a lantern back on its nail. The wind had blown out the candle, and she had taken it down to relight it. Her back was stretched out under the eaves, and her recently washed hair fell loosely around her face. Strands of hair and the shadows from the lantern made lightly shifting patterns on her outstretched arms. A hint of plum blossoms floated on the evening breeze. Ogo, shall I hang it for you? Oh, it's the young master, she said with surprise. Wait a minute. When the man came forward, she saw that it was not Seijuro, but Toji. Will that do? He asked. Yes, that's fine, thank you. But Toji squinted at the lantern, decided it was crooked, and rehang it. It was amazing to Ogo handsome men who would flatly refuse to lend a hand in their own homes could be so helpful and considerate when visiting a place like hers. Often they would open or close the windows for themselves, get out their own cushions, and do a dozen other little chores they would never dream of doing under their own roofs. Toji, pretending not to have heard, showed his master indoors. Seijuro, as soon as he was seated, said, "It's awfully quiet." "I opened the door to the veranda," said Toji. Below the narrow veranda rippled the waters of the Takase River. To the south, beyond the small bridge at Sanjo Avenue, lay the broad compound of the Susanin, the dark expanse of Teramachi, the town of temples, and a field of miscanthus. This was near Kayahara, where Toyotomi Hideyoshi's troops had slain the wife, concubines, and children of his nephew, the murderous regent Hidesugu, an event still fresh in many people's memory. Toji was getting nervous. "It's still too quiet. Where are the women hiding? They don't seem to have any other customers tonight." He fidgeted a bit. "I wonder what's taking Oko so loud. She hasn't even brought us our tea." When his impatience made him so jumpy, he could no longer sit still. He got up to go see why the tea hadn't been served. As he stepped out onto the veranda, he nearly collided with Akemi, who was carrying a gold lacquer tray. The little bell in her obi tinkled as she exclaimed, "Be careful, you will make me spill the tea." "Why are you so late with it? The young master is here. I thought you liked him." "See, I spilled some. It's your fault. Go fetch me a rag." "Huh, pretty sassy, aren't you? Where's Oko?" "Putting on her makeup, of course." "You mean she's not finished yet?" "Well, we were busy during the daytime." "Daytime? Who came during the daytime?" "That's none of your business. Please let me by." He stepped aside and Akemi entered the room and greeted the guests. "Good evening. It was good of you to come, Seijuro." "It was good of you to come." Seijuro, feigning nonchalance, looked aside and said, "Oh, it's you, Akemi. Thanks for last night." He was embarrassed. From the tray, she took a jar that looked like an incense burner and placed on it a pipe with a ceramic mouthpiece and bowl. "Would you like a smoke?" she asked politely. "I thought tobacco was recently banned." "It was, but everybody still smokes anyway." "All right, I will have some. I will light it for you." She took a pinch of tobacco from a pretty little mother-of-pearl box and stuffed it into the tiny bowl with her dainty fingers. Then she put the pipe to his mouth. Seijuro, not being in the habit of smoking, handled it rather awkwardly. Bitter, isn't it?" he said. Akemi giggled. "Where did Toji go?" "He's probably in Mother's room. He seems fond of Oko. At least it looks that way to me. I suspect he comes here without me sometimes. Does he?" Akemi laughed but did not answer. "What's funny about that? I think your mother rather likes him too." "I really wouldn't know." "Oh, I'm sure of it. Absolutely sure. It's a cozy arrangement, isn't it? Two happy couples, your mother and Toji, you and me." Looking as innocent as he could, he put his hand on top of Akemi's, which was resting on her knee. Primly, she brushed it away, but this only made Seijuro bolder. As she started to rise, he put his arm around her thin wrist and drew her to him, her thin waist and drew her to him. "You don't have to run away," he said. "I'm not going to hurt you." "Let go of me," she protested. "All right, but only if you sit down again. The sake, I will just go and get some. I don't want any. But if I don't bring it, Mother will get angry. Your mother's in the other room having a nice chat with Toji." He tried to rub his cheek against her lower face, but she turned her head away and called frantically for help. "Mother, mother!" He released her and she flew toward the back of the house. Seijuro was becoming frustrated. He was lonely, but didn't really want to force himself on the girl. Not knowing what to do with himself, he grunted out loud, "I'm going home," and started tramping down the outer corridor, his face growing more crimson with each step. Young master, where are you going? You're not leaving, are you? Seemingly from out of nowhere, Ogo appeared behind him and rushed down the hall. As she put her arm about him, he noticed that her hair was in place and her makeup was in order. She summoned Toji to the rescue, and together they persuaded Seijuro to go back and sit down. Ogo brought sake and tried to cheer him up. Then Toji led Akemi back into the room. When the girl saw how crestfallen Seijuro was, she flashed a smile at him. Akemi poured the young master some sake. Yes, mother, she said obediently. You see how she is, don't you? Said Ogo. Why does she want to act like a child? That's her charm. She's young, said Toji, sliding his cushion up closer to the table. But she's already 21. 21? I didn't think she was that old. She's so small she looks about 16 or 17. Akemi, suddenly as full of life as a minnow, said, Really, that makes me happy because I would like to be 16 all my life. Something wonderful happened to me when I was 16. What? What? Oh, she said, clasping her hands to her breast. I can't tell anybody about it, but it happened. When I was 16, do you know what province I was in then? That was the year of the Battle of Sekigahara. With a menacing look, Ogo said, Chatterbox, stop boring us with your talk. Go and get your shamisen. Pouting slightly, Akemi stood up and went for her instrument. When she returned, she started playing and singing a song, more intent, it seemed, upon amusing herself than pleasing the guests. Tonight, then, if it's to be cloudy, let it be cloudy. Hiding the moon, I can see only through my tears. Breaking off, she said, Do you understand, Toji? I'm not sure. Sing some more. Even in the darkest night, I do not lose my way. But oh, how you fascinate me. She is 21 after all, said Toji. Seijuro, who had been sitting silently with his forehead resting on his hand, came to life and said, Akemi, let's have a cup of sake together. He handed her the cup and filled it from the sake warmer. She drank it down without flinching and briskly handed him back the cup to drink from. Somewhat surprised, Seijuro said, You know how to drink, don't you? Finishing off his draught, he offered her another, which she accepted and downed with alacrity. Apparently dissatisfied with the cup's size, she took out a larger one and for the next half hour matched him drink for drink. Seijuro marveled. There she was, looking like a 16-year-old girl, with lips that had never been kissed and an eye that shrank with shyness, and yet she was putting away her sake like a man. In that tiny body, where did all it go? She may as well give up now, Ogo said to Seijuro. For some reason, the child can drink all night without getting drunk. The best thing to do is let her play the shamisen. But this is fun, said Seijuro, now thoroughly enjoying himself. Sensing something strange in his voice, Toji asked, Are you alright? Sure you haven't had too much? It doesn't matter. Say, Toji, I may not go home tonight. That's alright too, replied Toji. You can stay as many nights as you wish, can't he, Akemi? Toji winked at Ogo, then led her off to another room where he began whispering rapidly. He told Ogo that with a young master in such high spirits, he would certainly want to sleep with Akemi and that there would be trouble if Akemi refused. But that, of course, a mother's feelings were the most important thing of all in cases like this, or in other words, how much. Well, Toji demanded abruptly. Ogo put her finger to her thickly powdered cheek and thought. Make up your mind, urged Toji. Drawing closer to her, he said, It's not a bad match, you know. He's a famous teacher of the martial arts and his family has lots of money. His father has more disciples than anybody else in the country. What's more, he's not married yet. And any way you look at it, it's an attractive offer. Well, I think so too, but But nothing, it's settled. We'll both spend the night. There was no light in the room, and Toji casually rested his hand on Oko's shoulder. At just that moment, there was a loud noise in the next room back. What was that? Asked Toji. Do you have other customers? Oko nodded silently, then put her moist lips to his ear and whispered, Later. Trying to appear casual, the two went back to Seijuro's room, only to find him alone and sound asleep. Toji, taking the adjacent room, stretched out on the pallet. He lay there drumming his fingers on the tatami, waiting for Oko. She failed to appear. Eventually, his eyelids grew heavy and he drifted off to sleep. He woke up quite late the next morning with a resentful look on his face. Seijuro had already arisen and was drinking in the room overlooking the river. Both Oko and Akemi looked bright and cheerful, as though they had forgotten about the night before. They were coaxing Seijuro into some sort of promise. Then you will take us? Alright, we will go. Put together some boxed lunches and bring some sake. They were talking about the Okunin Kabuki, which was being performed on the riverbank at Shijo Avenue. This was a new kind of dance with words and music, the current rage in the capital. It had been invented by a shrine maiden named Okunin at the Izumo Shrine, and its popularity had already inspired many imitations. In the busy area along the river, there were rows of stages where tropes of women performers competed to attract audiences, each trying to achieve a degree of individuality by adding special provincial dances and songs to the repertoire. The actresses, for the most part, had started out as women of the night. Now that they had taken to the stage, however, they were summoned to perform in some of the greatest mansions of the capital. Many of them took masculine names, dressed in men's clothing, and put on staring performances as valiant warriors. Seijuro sat staring out the door. Beneath the small bridge at Sanjo Avenue, women were bleaching clothes in the river. Men on horseback were passing back and forth over the bridge. Aren't those two ready yet? He asked irritably. It was already past noon. Sluggish from drink and tired of waiting, he was no longer in the mood for kabuki. Toji, still smarting from the night before, was not his usual ebullient self.
Ebullient.
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 Ebullient. Ebullient self. It's fun to take women out, he grumbled, but why is it that just when you are ready to leave, they suddenly start worrying about whether their hair is just right or their obi straight? What a nuisance. Seijuro's thoughts turned to his school. He seemed to hear the sound of wooden swords and the clack of lance handles. What were his students saying about his absence? No doubt his younger brother, Danshichiro, was clicking his tongue in disapproval. Toji, he said, I don't really want to take them to see Kabuki. Let's go home. After you've already promised, well, they were so thrilled they'll be furious if we back out. I'll go and hurry them up. On his way down the hallway, Toji glanced into a room where the women's clothes were strewn about. He was surprised to see neither of them. Where can they have got to? He wondered aloud. They weren't in the adjoining room either. Beyond that was another gloomy little room, sunless and musty with the odor of bed clothes. Toji opened the door and was greeted with an angry roar. Who's there? Jumping back a step, Toji peered into the dark cubby hole. It was floored with old tattered mats and was as different from the pleasant front rooms as night is from day. Sprawled on the floor, a sword handle lying carelessly across his belly, was an unkempt samurai whose clothing and general appearance left no doubt that he was one of the ronin often seen roaming the streets and byways with nothing to do. The sole of his dirty feet stared Toji in the face, making no effort to get up. He lay there in a stupor. Toji said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know there was a guest in here." "I'm not a guest," the man shouted toward the ceiling. He reeked of sake, and though Toji had no idea who he was sure he wanted nothing more to do with him. "Sorry to bother you," he said quickly and turned to leave. "Hold on there," the man said roughly, raising himself up slightly. "Close the door behind you." Startled by his rudeness, Toji did as he was told and left. Almost immediately, Toji was replaced by Oko. Dressed to kill, he was obviously trying to look the great lady, as though tat-tatting a child. She said to Masahachi, "Now what are you so angry about?" Akemi, who was just behind her mother, asked, "Why don't you come with us?" "Where?" "To see the Okunin Kabuki." Masahachi's mouth twisted with repugnance. Repugnance.
Repugnance.
Repugnance. Masahachi's mouth twisted with repugnance. What husband would be seen in the company of a man who is chasing after his wife? He asked bitterly. Oko had the feeling that cold water had been thrown in her face. Her eyes lighting up with anger, she said, "What are you talking about? Are you implying that there is something going on between Toji and me?" "Who said anything was going on? You just said as much." Masahachi made no reply. "And you are supposed to be a man," though she hurled the words at him contemptuously. Masahachi maintained his sullen silence. "You made me sick," she snapped. "You are always getting jealous over nothing. Come, Akemi, let's not waste our time on this madman." Masahachi reached out and caught her skirt. "Who are you calling a madman? What do you mean, talking to your husband that way?" Oko pulled free of him. "And why not?" she said viciously. "If you are a husband, why don't you act like one? Who do you think is keeping you in food, you worthless layabout? Hey, you've hardly earned anything since we left Omi province. You have just been living off me, drinking your sake and loafing. What have you got to complain about? I told you I would go out and walk. I told you I would even haul stones for the castle wall. But that wasn't good enough for you. You say you can't eat this, you can't wear that, you can't live in a dirty little house. There's no end to what you can't put up with. So instead of letting me do honest labor, you start this rotten tea house. Well, stop it, I tell you, stop it." "Stop what?" "Stop running this place, and if I did, what will we eat tomorrow? I can make enough for us to live on, even hauling rocks. I could manage for the three of us. If you're so eager to carry rocks or saw wood, why don't you just go away? Go on, be a laborer, anything. But if you do, you can live by yourself. The trouble with you is that you were born a clod, and you will always be a clod. You should have stayed in Mimasaka. Believe me, I'm not begging you to stay. Feel free to leave anytime you want. Feel free to leave anytime you want." While Matahachi made an effort to hold back his angry tears, Oko and Akemi turned their backs on him, but even after they were out of sight, he stood staring at the doorway. When Oko had hidden him at her house near Mount Ibuki, he had thought he was lucky to have found someone who would love and take care of him. Now, however, he felt that he might as well have been captured by the enemy, which was better after all. To be a prisoner or to become the pet of a fickle widow and cease to be a real man? Was it worse to languish in prison than to suffer here in the dark, a constant object of a shrewd scorn? He had had great hopes for the future, and he had let this slut with her powdered face and her lascivious sex pull him down to her level. The bitch, Matahachi trembled with anger. The rotten bitch. Tears welled up from the bottom of his heart. Why, oh, why hadn't he returned to Miyamoto? Why hadn't he gone back to Otsu? His mother was in Miyamoto, his sister too, and his sister's husband. And uncle gone. They had all been so good to him. The bell at the Shippoji would be ringing today, wouldn't it? Just as it rang every day. And the Ida River would be flowing along its course as usual. Flowers would be blooming on the riverbank, and the birds would be heralding the arrival of spring. What a fool I am, what a crazy, stupid fool. Matahachi pounded his head with his fist. Outside, mother, daughter, and the two overnight guests strolled along the street, chatting merrily. It's just like spring. It ought to be. It's almost the third month. The third month. They say the shogun will come to the capital soon. If he does, you two ladies should take in a lot of money, eh? Oh no, I'm sure we won't. Why? Don't the samurai from Edo like to play? They are much too uncouth. Mother, isn't that the music for the kabuki? I hear bells and a flute too. Listen to the child. She's always like this. She thinks she already at the theater. But mother, I can hear it. Never mind that. Carry the young master's hat for him. The footsteps and voices drifted into the yomogi. Matahachi, with eyes still red with fury, stole a look out the window at the happy foursome. He found the sight so humiliating he once again plopped down on the tatami in the dark room, cursing himself. What are you doing here? Have you no pride left? How can you let things go on this way? Idiot, do something. The speech was addressed to himself, his anger at Oko eclipsed by his indignation at his own craven weakness. She said, "Get out." Well, get out, he argued. There's no reason to sit here gnashing your teeth. You're only 22, you are still young. Get out and do something on your own. He felt he couldn't abide staying in the empty, silent house another minute, yet for some reason he couldn't leave. His head ached with confusion. He realized that living the way he had been for the past few years, he had lost the ability to think clearly. How had he stood it? His woman was spending her evenings entertaining other men, selling them the charms she had once lavished on him. He couldn't sleep nights, and in the daytime he was too dispirited to go out. Brooding here in this dark room, there was nothing to do but drink, and all he thought for that aging whore. He was disgusted with himself. He knew that the only way out of his agony was to kick the whole ugly business sky high and return to the aspiration of his younger days. He must find the way he had lost, and yet, some mysterious attraction bound him. What sort of evil spell was it that held him here? Was the woman a demon in disguise? She would curse him, tell him to go away, swear he was nothing but trouble to her, and then in the middle of the night she would melt like honey and say it had all been a joke. She really hadn't meant any of it. And even if she was nearly 40, there were those lips